All right, so my name is Christopher Guyton, and here is my final presentation for Project and Portfolio 4 regarding my level design. So, as you can see from the level design document, my level is based on the idea of breaking out of a prison. I called it just level prison break. I used this image of a young man breaking out of prison just to kind of drive home the point of what we were trying to do. Initially, the idea here is the player was supposed to grab the boat key and escape the prison, but I since changed it to a car key. The reason being was that I didn't really have time to implement like water physics, which was a completely different animal. But if we scroll down the level story and description here, it's just a prison that's located on the coast of Canada. It's very dark, it's very cold, it's very unwelcoming. So there's lots of grays and like light tones. But I did have to use some lighting to kind of allow the player to understand which way to go. So it's a little bit brighter than I originally had conveyed. So here is the mood board. It's really simple. It's just a single image of the famous Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. And, this was found via the Wikimedia Foundation. But all in all, this was sort of the concept. You're on an island, you're sort of remote, and you have to break out of a large prison complex. And so I thought that was really all I needed to do to drive home the point of this level, was to show an image of probably the most famous prison in the world, which is Alcatraz in California. Here's my bubble diagram, and the bubble diagram is very simple. The starting area is up here where my cursor is, and that was to be just a block of cells. And then I have another little bubble here to represent more cells. In the final, the cells actually kind of like encompass the cafeteria area, and there's a top and a bottom, but just to kind of convey how the space was supposed to lay out, that's sort of what it was. And then we had the central processing unit over here, the watchman's office, and the entrance, and all of these three areas do connect in the final build of the level. However, just there was some things that were sort of cut. For example, the basement here and the boiler room. The basement remained, but the boiler room got cut and just got converted into a different area. The reasons for that were kind of plentiful. I didn't really see the need for an extra piece of space to tell the story here. And the yard is significantly larger. The yard actually encompasses most of the area between like the entrance and the actual area where the car is. And this was originally obviously called a dock because the original concept was to get into a boat, but again, no water physics. And then there's a fire escape. The fire escape, actually, this bubblegram sort of makes it look like it's outside. The fire escape is actually inside, and it leads to the roof, which is actually not represented on this bubble diagram, but I did add a roof later in the progress. So here, same thing with the top-down map here. I actually did add the roof, so you can see where the roof is, and this was supposed to be the ocean and where the boat was. Obviously, again, that got changed to a car, and so it's actually just on land here. But the basic layout sort of stays the same. On the top-down map, I sort of laid out like that there would be cell blocks sort of surrounding the cafeteria. So there's a little bit more of a fleshing out of these ideas here, and and so that's pretty much that. I actually also added the icons here to just sort of represent like what you would be finding in each of these rooms. A few of these things got cut or changed. For example, originally I was going to have the player find the flashlight on the roof, and I actually added a tower, a watchman's tower, in addition to the watchman's office, where the flashlight actually was placed. And then I added a few more items that were like batteries that actually ended up being in this original place where the flashlight was, and one being in the cell blocks, and they all led you through different paths, allowing you to enter the basement, etc. So those were things that significantly changed a little bit during development. And here is my top-down map with paths and objectives. For the most part, the paths stayed the same. The objectives obviously changed a little bit during development. And let's see. So I've actually changed, obviously I changed a few things, but the basic mechanic of getting into the car remained the same here. So here's a diagram of just that I drew of driving the boat instead. This concept of listening to and destroying the radio actually just got completely cut. I just really couldn't find a good use for it, and I couldn't think of like why it would make sense for the narrative of the level, and so it just ended up getting cut and replaced with just generic door mechanics. Using the flashlight is pretty much the same, although there is no animation in the final build, and the flashlight just sort of comes out of the player's chest. This was also, again, due to time constraints. Climbing the ladder pretty much stayed the same. I did make the player auto climb the ladder as I originally intended, so this mechanic stayed exactly the same. And rescuing the trapped prisoner was changed a little bit. It still exists in the final build, but the player character needs to find a battery, which will allow them to open a laser controlled door, and that will actually free the prisoner. It won't. The player just doesn't have to just walk up to the door, and actually can't walk to the door and free the prisoner because of the way it's set up. Okay, so here is the final level. One thing I will note is that I did also add a mechanic for time, which is also part of like the data display. A lot of the data display is actually already present on the UI, so the batteries that you collect, the files that you can read, which were additional and changed mechanics from the level design document, those are always present for the player, so you can see that data being collected while you play. I did add a bit of understanding of what the controls are in the bottom left here, so you just use WASD to move, space to jump, and E to climb ladders. Now there's only one ladder in the level, which is the original, fire escape that was present on the level design document. But let's go ahead and run through here. So since I know where these batteries are, I'm going to go find the first battery, like we mentioned during the level design document stage. And we're going to go up and we're going to find that fire escape ladder that created. So the ladder works exactly the same way as it does in the level design doc. I hit E and the player automatically walks up and then ends up at the top of the ladder, and you regain control of your player. We're going to go ahead and grab that battery, and we are going to head through here to the Watchman's Tower, and we're going to go ahead and find the flashlight. Now, there is another piece of data that's collected, not so much the same way as the batteries or the files, but when you do collect the flashlight, there is a prompt that tells you how to use it, which is pressing L, so you can toggle the flashlight on and off. And then we're going to go over here, and we're going to hit Q to open the door and head down. And this was something that was actually implemented later on, so you're actually not allowed to actually go through here. You'll be blocked unless you turn on your flashlight, and when you do, you can actually run through this area and you can rescue this prisoner here. He's not going to do anything right now, he's just a generic mesh, but that's just how it is for right now. So as I go back up, I'm going to turn off my flashlight actually. So as we go back up, we want to go find where the car key is, so that's in the watchman's office. As we can see down the hallway. So for the most part, the layout stayed the same. I added some things, I tweaked some things and changed it, but for the most part, the layer stayed the same. And we're going to go ahead and read those files on the bookshelf. Didn't really have time to implement what I wanted to, which was just more like kind of narrative explanation. But I did flesh out this area by adding some more items. And there's the car key right there. This is also another room that I added during development, like later in development, which is supposed to be basically the room where the prisoners would go to see visitors. And so that room just exists here. This was not on the level design document, but I added it because it felt like the prison sort of felt like it needed it. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's go back. I didn't really talk about the cell blocks because there was another change here. So the cell blocks here are clearly on the ground here, but this area down here was actually just changed to be sort of more like showers, although there's no meshes in here. And then there are cell blocks on top for where we came from. So we're going to go ahead and go back out. running through this hallway. And this is the entrance area, central processing sort of area that we mentioned in the beginning, but I kind of just shortened it a little bit. It's really just like this hallway, right? And in the final, the entrance is here. You have two desks here. And we can walk up to this door. And we'll go ahead and run up here. So a lot of the custom mechanics in here, obviously the flashlight, the reading of the files, the opening of the doors with the battery. Those were the things that we, that was coded in custom. This is an additional path here. And I do want to note, I'm going to jump down here actually, I do want to note that you can actually exit the level through here as well from the basement area. So if I go down this path here, this is actually the same basement area that we freed the prisoner from. So we can actually go through that way. I'm going to turn off the L again. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to read some more files because that's what you do in this level. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump down. And all this data has been collected the entire time that I've been here. So the time, the amount of batteries that I've collected, and the files that I've read, and whether or not I rescued the prisoner. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my vehicle, and the game's going to tell me I made it, tell me how many batteries I took, what the time took, how long it took, I should say, how many files I read, and whether or not I saved the prisoner, and it fades out and just lets me know the data. So that's my level presentation.